Hi again. I'm in my studio and I wanted to show you some more ideas for making collages. Um, my hope during this pandemonium, I don't know what to call it, where we're all staying at home together, that by sharing these ideas, it will hopefully give other people opportunities to try things maybe new to them and be creative at home. So let me begin. One of the things you can use for collages is maps. And this was actually a piece I did in 2003. And it was right when we invaded Iraq. And as I watched all the TV news about the shock and awe and the violence, I just needed a release and I needed to infuse the opposite of that into my work. So I started with a map and collaged on it. It's the Middle East if you look through the paint. So I feel like that would be a really good thing for us to do. It could be any kind of a map. I actually once, with some students, just explored, and we all had a little section of a map. And I don't think you even need to have the map be of a certain place, just anywhere in the world. But we just explored as many techniques as we could. So collage and painting and drawing and embroidery. And I'm sure there's more. So collages with maps is a rich area to explore. So I call this detritus collage. A detritus collage, you use something that's a found object. So I know you're all cleaning your closets and going through drawers. So you might find something like a second cheap game of checkers. So you don't need two of them maybe. So you decide you could give these up and put them into a collage. So things could be three-dimensional or flat, but they can work their way into one of your collages. I talked before a little bit about the idea of using imagery from magazines. This is from a brochure from the Salvador Dali Museum. And I just wanted to point out that you can take imagery like this. You could take photographs and imagery from the newspaper or from a magazine and cut it out. And if you mix acrylic paint, diluted so that it's more of a wash, you can paint over most any surface and see through to the actual photograph. So that's a way, once it's dry, to have altered imagery to use in your collages. This I thought could be fun for the whole family. This was a lesson I did once on cubism, and our focus was our faces, but we kind of played with the idea of shape and color. So cubism, started by Picasso and others in the early part of the last century, was looking at an image from more than one perspective or viewpoint. So you might see the front and the side, and almost as if you were walking around what you were looking at. So there could be a sideways nose or things in the wrong place because you shifted your viewpoint. So I just like the idea of cutting out shapes. As a family, you could work together and you could all create one face, or each of you could create your own face. And you could do more than one and just come back to that white piece of paper and try other things. So I think that's fun. You might have like old cards that you've kept that you like. And if there's a blank part, you can start to play with imagery or words. And I always like things that are like hidden doors. So this was something where I created some ideas through the words I cut out of magazines. And then I have spoken a little bit about the process of Exquisite Corpse. So Exquisite Corpse is playing with words. And I suggested if you go to my Facebook page and my Instagram page, I have a tutorial on this. But I take and build phrases with these words. And for example, here's one: dance to the beat of your own shooting star. So when I get one I like, I sometimes type it up. Sometimes I use it in a card. I thought I would mention cards. This one says, "You dream among the finches." Because at this time I feel like we could all be sending cards to each other through snail mail. So that could be very therapeutic, to make a special card and send it to someone. It doesn't have to have a message on it. This one I did, and I've left it blank. And when I send it, I'll just write on the inside. So you could make lots of cards on any given day and then think about who to send them to. Another thing I like to do with collage is I like to use old books. So I call this altering a book. So I find an old book, and I usually find one that isn't great literature. And then I start to alter it. So with collage and painting and other things, you can make the surface change and personalize it. And then you can fill it with all kinds of your collages and other artwork. So this I call a day book. You might call it a journal. And I think it's a great beginning place where you just use the book to commemorate things, and maybe enshrine them, create collages. This one, me as a child. So you might want to think about personal imagery. You might enshrine your children, my daughter and son, or a very close friend. You might, let's see, again, you might create some writing that you put in there. You can cut little openings for windows and put things behind them. Here's a 4-part window, and there's a little dove there, Picasso's dove. So a day book, I think, is wonderful. You can put little notes that your children give you. This is from a student, which, of course, I kept. It was so special, so I have a place to put it now. So a day book, and you could do one every year, is a wonderful thing to do. I also do travel books. I think I mentioned that before. Let's get this out of the way. So this was a book I did when I went to Portugal. And you can see that each page gets transformed through collage, recording things I learned about. This is Fernando Pessoa, the most famous poet in Portugal. So he appears in my book several times. So I have phrases in here. I invited over a promising Portuguese dessert founded by barefoot Carmelites. And you can create poems and glue them in. Again, using maps. You'd be amazed what you'll find around your house. Pessoa again. So travel books are wonderful. And then, as I said, you could, if you write a poem, alter a whole book to enshrine the poem. So this was a children's board book, and I'll read this. I think it just will take a moment. But this was a way for me to illustrate and keep a poem that I had made. And since everyone, including me, is having trouble sleeping, this poem seems appropriate. Night Sleep. Moving past all signs, dark and sleeping, I come to the hidden parts of night I shall never know. My dream meets me in a dark mile or two, like a stolen whisper in my ear. The Coleman, pure white and pure black, trespasses on this territory, washed clean at night. I invite my primitive roots to sleep soundly as I dream of devotion. My hope, still half asleep, is like a coiled spring on my pillow. I long for the burst of moment that wakes me, the contented bounce of morning. While these illuminated nights baying at the moon seem to know the answer already. So putting a poem in a book, I won't read this, although maybe I will another time. This one's called From Words We Share, and it is commemorating my close friends. So I have one for my friend Kathleen. I have one for my friend Susan. So at this time, we need our friends, and a book that kind of has gratitude for your friends is a wonderful activity, I think. So just some things to think about, and I'll be back with more ideas next week. Thanks so much.